I've been making a lot of different shot on iPhone short films over the last year or so and have been sharing many of them over on YouTube, Instagram, and a ton of different places. And what's really cool to see is the incredible responses and questions that I get when I am sharing these short films and other productions online that have been shot on the iPhone. But one of the more polarizing questions that I get all the time is, have you used external lenses and what other gear have you used on your iPhone? To which I always answer yes. In fact, with most of my short films, I love posting dedicated behind the scenes articles that get pretty comprehensive in terms of disclosing all the gear that I use on these iPhones. But quite often, some of the more common criticisms that I do get is that whenever people discover that there have been additional hardware that has been put on the phone to use to shoot these projects, they say, oh, it's not shot on iPhone anymore because you've used external glass. Now, although I do agree to a sense that it's important to share exactly all the gear that you have used when you are shooting anything for that matter, I definitely have a few things to say when it comes to using external lenses on your iPhone, and I wanted to share with you exactly why I love to use these accessories on my phone. Firstly, going quickly back to that comment of putting lenses on an iPhone doesn't mean it's shot on iPhone. Well, I kind of disagree with that, and the main reason is this. For example, if I go grab Roger Deakins, I'll grab an ARRI Alexa and put on some master primes on there. I'll go kidnap Ryan Gosling, put him in front of the camera, and then bang. I'm not really going to get Blade Runner 2049. There is so much more production, visual effects, storytelling elements, script writing, and everything that goes into actually making a film or a story. And it's not just about the gear that you put in front of the camera. I think though it is always important to disclose how you've shot something. So for example, there's a lot of shot on iPhone campaigns, which I used to love. And at the end, you'll always see additional gear used. It's important to showcase that when other gear has used. You obviously don't want to go out and just say it's just shot on this and then deny everything. That's definitely no cool. But that will kind of settle my opinion on that point. Okay, so firstly, I love using these lenses because it enables me to get to different focal lengths while using the same main sensor on the iPhone. On the iPhone 17 Pro, depending on the phones there are different lenses and everything, but it's always consistent that the main wide, which is the 23mm lens on the main sensor, which has pretty much the best image quality. Although over the years, the actual sensor parity, which means the differences between the sensors across the three lenses on the iPhone have become less and less, the main wide is still the best in terms of picture quality. This comes down to low light, resolution, less distortion, all of that. Using these lenses enables me to always use that sensor, but still achieve different optical quality. Go to an ultra wide, I can use a 58mm telephoto, I can use a bigger 80mm telephoto, or whatever I wanted to use by utilizing the main sensor. Next, another huge reason is the fact that with these iPhones, when it comes to video, especially when you are shooting in pro formats like ProRes OpenGate or anything really, and you just don't want to use the digital cropping, you've really got three choices. You've got the 13mm, you've got the 23mm, and then there's a massive gap all the way up to the 100mm. So between the 23 and the 100, that's where these lenses come in. It enables me to fill in those gaps and get different optical lengths. So I can go from the 23mm, which is pretty wide, then I can go to like the 40mm with this freewell lens, then I can go to the 58mm, which is this sandmark lens here. And then after that, if I want to go a little bit longer, I can get the 85mm lens. And then it kind of goes on up until the 100mm macro, and then the 200mm tetraprism lens, for example, from Sandmark. Now with these lenses, I can get a pretty nice staggered kind of approach in terms of different focal lengths, rather than having to rely on just 23 or 100mm or the ultra wide, for example. So thirdly, let's talk about bokeh. There is definitely a bokeh benefit that comes from using telephoto lenses on the main sensor on the iPhone, especially when you are shooting in OpenGate ProRes RAW. You get the largest field of view that comes courtesy of the OpenGate sensor. And when you attach a telephoto lens onto that main OpenGate sensor, you get much more compression in the background. You get all this extra glass that ultimately adds a little bit more background blur. Because the iPhone sensor is so small versus a mirrorless camera like an APS-C sensor or, for example, a full frame sensor, you are dealing with a lot less natural bokeh that comes out of the camera. So it means that you need to bring the subject closer or just do a bit of stuff in post, which I still love to do. One of the biggest benefits of using these lenses is that you find you'll get a lot more natural bokeh that will come straight out of the iPhone lens when you are pairing it up with one of these lenses too. My three favorites are the telephoto lens from Freewell, which is a 40mm, the Sandmark lens, which is a 58mm, although one thing to note is that you can't quite shoot in OpenGate mode with the Sandmark lens unless you're okay with a bit of vignetting if you have an external ND on there. And then the most outrageous lens when it comes to telephoto on the main sensor, and you get incredible bokeh out of it, is this 85mm monster of a telephoto lens from Newer, which is cool, but you can't really use this for travel and stuff. I think this just goes a little bit too far, but I still used it in a lot of my recent short films, which is great if you can lug it around. And lastly, I guess the final thing I want to mention is that even though when you are attaching these lenses on the iPhone, one of the biggest benefits of just shooting on the iPhone itself, which I've talked about so many times, is how small and lightweight it is. Even this 17 Pro Max, which is the biggest phone, is still really, really small compared to other smaller mirrorless cameras. When you attach these lenses, the whole package is still very, very small and compact. In fact, if you are shooting a lot of handheld stuff, this added little bit of extra weight can add to a little bit more stabilization and everything, which I think is quite helpful. Ultimately, in the end, these lenses are so much smaller and honestly significantly cheaper compared to their APS-C and full frame counterparts. So you can grab the phone, a couple of lenses, and everything can fit in a nice little travel case if you just wanted to use them for travel. Or if you're like me and shoot short films and everything on your iPhone, all these lenses can fit in one case and you don't ever have to worry about leaving things behind. And when it comes to rigging, these still work great. Putting on the phone, putting on the case, a lens, you can put it up on a C-stand without too much counterweight and everything. And even just with a single magic arm, it rigs fantastic. So there's no detriment to adding these lenses when it comes to weight versus having to rig up a big cinema camera. I do think that when you do use these products, it's still very much a shot on iPhone or mobile experience. It's just important to be able to share with people how you've shot things. I think just no gatekeeping in general is always a good thing. If you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below, or you can check the links in the descriptions, which have all the different behind the scenes articles for our past short films, the gear that I use, and all that other good stuff. Until next time, have a wonderful day, stay safe, and of course, do take care.